All right, guys, today on What's Hot, we're going to talk about whether or not that Zillow Zestimate is accurate.
You better get fired up.
Good to see you guys. Happy Monday. We're here every single Monday from 11 to roughly 11:20, 11:30, depending upon how chatty I get, to answer the questions of what is hot in real estate right now. And today we're talking about Zillow's estimates. If you are in any way familiar with Zillow, you know that probably the most, I don't want to say impressive, but sought after feature that they have is the Zillow's estimate, right? Where it gives you a quick snapshot of your property's value, just giving you a feel for kind of where you're at financially. You can do the backwards math from that and determine whether or not you want to sell. Do you want to stay? How much money would I get? Would that help me accomplish my next goals? It's very helpful in doing that. The question is it really accurate, right? Because if it's not accurate, then it's not all that helpful, and it's a facade of being helpful. Here's what I would say. I think that it's a wonderful benchmark to kind of give you an idea. If it says $500,000, your property's probably worth $475 to $525, but it's not necessarily 500. And I'll tell you, you might have a bunch of upgrades that Zillow doesn't see, and your property's worth $550, $575. You also might have a bunch of dogs and pets, and maybe you just don't maintain your home very well, and your property's worth $410. I've seen all of these different things, including the fact that you got to remember Zillow uses a mathematical equation, right? It's an algorithm, and it looks at surrounding sales, and it's not taking everything into consideration that an agent would take into consideration. As a human with experience, I can show up and instantly know how important is the roof to the value of a home in this price point. On a lower price point, it's incredibly important. On a higher price point, people can afford to update their roofs, or a lot of times if it's cash, they can go without insurance for a while. It's less important, right? If you're on water and you've got $1 million home, that water is very critical to the value of that property. If you're at a $300,000, $350,000 price point here and you're on the water, not nearly as imperative, because you've got people who are just trying to squeak into a home. They're not looking for that type of amenity, right? So the impact of different things has different, I'm repeating what I just said, impacts depending upon the price point, the location, the market that we're currently in. Are we going up? Are we going down? I saw one the other day where it was saying that this home was worth $450, and I was telling the sellers it was worth $600. And they said, how could it possibly be off $150,000? Because it was a 2-year-old community. Everything that had sold in there was about $450. The community had gone up $100,000, $150,000. They had a property with a heck of a lot more amenities than most, and theirs was worth $600,000. If I'm only looking in that community, there's no resales because nobody sold. They've only lived there for 2 years. This was going to be the first couple to sell. So Zillow, I'm guessing, I can't see their equation, is only pulling from that neighborhood. The only sales they have are from 2 years ago, and all of those sales averaged out to about $450. That would have been incredibly horrendous for those sellers had they taken that number and sold for that number, right? And sometimes, let's say in that same neighborhood, there are 3 sales. And let's say all 3 of those sales just happen to randomly be short sales or foreclosures. And let's say that, maybe one's a short sale, one's a foreclosure, and one, it's dad selling to his daughter, and he sells it purposely for $75,000 less than what it's worth, right? He's okay with it. It's going to my daughter. You're not going to know all those things as a math equation on Zillow. You're just going to look at it and say, this is what the property is worth. And if that's all the data you have, you're going to say the property is worth significantly less than it is. If you get a human in there with experience, they're going to say, okay, I'm seeing these, but these aren't jiving with what I would have guessed they're worth. Let me look outside of this community. Let's see what's going on. Oh, I see this is a foreclosure. Oh, this is a short sale. Interesting. I'm going to call this third agent because I'm not going to be able to see it's dad who sold to his daughter. And that agent's going to say, oh, yeah, we sold for significantly less because it was dad who sold to his daughter. Ah, gotcha. Now I can take all that into consideration when evaluating the value of the property. Zillow's not going to do any of that. So I say that to say this. Again, I think it's a great benchmark. In fact, I'll tell you myself, I don't want to value my property every single month when I'm calculating my net worth and all my figures and everything else. I go to Zillow. I do the same doggone thing. Is it perfect? No. Is it good enough for me who's not selling for a long time and I'm just trying to track my numbers? Sure, it's good enough. Doesn't matter, right? But if I was going to sell this home, would I go off the Zillow's estimate? Absolutely not. And one of the biggest reasons is when you go into a home, you can see how well it's taken care of. Have they used touch-up paint to make it look sharp? Did they redo all the paint? Do they have quartz countertops instead of the Korean countertops when they bought it? Did they put chrome molding in that, maybe they didn't have in the last sale? Did they completely redo the bathrooms? And now they've got a huge sports shower that's, 15 feet by 6 feet. Like, that's enormous, right? Do they have, huge walk-in closets that have California closets inside of them and all these wonderful organizers and a beautiful bench running down the center? Nobody has that in that price point. All these different amenities that could have been added, Zillow's not going to know any of that. And like I said in the beginning, they also don't know if you've got dogs scuffing up the floorboards or the flooring. They don't know if you've got kids who are damaging the doors and the trimmer on the doors. They don't know if you've got cracked windows. They don't know if your roof has had 3 leaks in the last 2 years. All of those things are going to impact the value, and a human realtor who comes in is going to be able to tell you all of those different impacts. And they're going to look at a lot of the same things that Zillow's looking at from a data analytical standpoint, and they're going to come up with a much more accurate depiction of your property's value, right? So I do think it's just fine to go look at it and kind of watch where your home is at. You can kind of assume, hey, if we did want to sell, or maybe we got into a financial predicament or whatever, we can kind of assume where we're at. But when it comes down to actually selling your home, you absolutely want to get a realtor in there to give you a value. You do not want to go off of Zillow's estimate. If you're selling yourself, you can still get a realtor in there. If you ask me to come in and help you, I'm going to come for free and tell you what your property is worth. Why would I do that? Number one, because this is my community and I want to help you guys. Number two, because I know that it's very challenging to sell a property yourself without any experience in real estate. The odds that you don't sell it, and if I'm the nice guy who helped you out, you call me back and say, Joe, could you help me sell this, are great. And I'll take that risk all day long. If I do 100 of those, I'm going to get 60, 70 of those people to call me back and say, Joe, I'd like you to be our agent. Can you sell this home for us? Absolutely. So I say that to say you should have people that you trust who are in real estate come in and give you those valuations, even if you say you want to try selling it yourself. That shouldn't be a problem at all. Certainly isn't for me. But yeah, just again, watch it. Be aware of what it is. Be aware of what it's not. If you're looking for ways to improve your value, reach out to your realtor and get those answers. And let's just say that you're not comfortable talking to a realtor, even though what I just said should hopefully make you feel a little more comfortable. Let's say you're still not comfortable. Then you can get an appraiser in there. An appraiser is going to charge you maybe $600, $800, depending upon the situation. And they're going to give you a very similar analysis of your property's value. What a realtor does and what an appraiser does is a little bit different, but if they're professionals, it's going to be pretty similar. The numbers should be pretty similar, and you should get a really good depiction. And I'll tell you this. I had a seller once beautifully say, Joe, you would be the 6th realtor that came in and talked to us. The previous 5 said numbers anywhere from 550 to 650 and everything in between. That's $100,000. We have no idea where we're at. And it was a little bit more challenging property to evaluate when it came to the value of that property. So I understood where they were coming from. And I also know that, was it last year, 80% of agents hadn't listed more than 4 homes. So a lot of people just don't in this industry have at-bats with listings. It's understandable. You should be able to look at the appraisal, or for an agent, it's called a CMA, right? A comparative market analysis. And we should be able to convince you it's worth it based on the data we've provided. If we just tell you, hey, your home is worth $600,000, that for me as a seller would not cut it. Why is it worth $600,000? Why is that agent's numbers wrong? Why is that appraiser wrong? Tell me why. Show me the process you used to get there. Show me the data you used to get there. And now I'll buy into it. And maybe you're not data driven. I get it. I am, which I like. Of course, we all like ourselves. I like that I'm data driven. If you're not data driven, find a data driven person to kind of analyze this with you. It is so worth it, because you don't want to overprice. You don't want to underprice. You want to be right at market value. That is going to help you the absolute best. But again, do that by looking at comps. If you don't want to use an agent, my gosh, you can use an appraiser. but an agent is always going to save you that $600 to $800 that you would otherwise be paying. Guys, if you've got something that you feel is hot in the market and you'd like more insight, feel free to DM me. You can email me, text me, and I'd be happy to get that up in next Monday's video. Have a great Monday.